Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Jodi Hammer, and I'm the Career Services Specialist with the National Peace Corps Association's Global Reentry Program. I'm also an RPCV, having served in Ecuador from 94 through 97. So it's my privilege to be here with you today to talk about best resources. And I'm going to talk actually about online and, some print ones that I think are important as well, but really focusing on online resources for the job search. I'm going to make this as participatory as possible. I definitely want folks to share your own in the chat box and such, so that we can really build a robust list together as part of this session. So let's go ahead and get started. The chat box, you should be able to drop all of your questions or anything into as well. And my colleague Danielle is working behind the scenes to help make sure that I know when there's certain maybe questions that come in, if I'm not answering them, things like that. So we'll make sure to take care of you today. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. Let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, I want to just do a quick, easy poll. How many people love the job search? Is there anyone that's here that absolutely loves the job search? There might be. If there is, please let us know. Maybe unmute yourself and say, yes, I love the job search, or put it in the chat box is fine as well. Just curious if there is anyone. And I will tell you, I typically do not find people love the job search. As much as I love to work with candidates and help them with their job search and empower them and, help them get great jobs, I'm not one who loves doing the job search for myself, right? As much. It's a lot different when you're doing it for yourself. So, yeah, people big yawn, don't really like it. Exactly. Not really enjoying that process. Most people don't enjoy the job search, and I totally get that. It can be really stressful, right? In a lot of ways. I mean, you are trying to get a job, you're trying, desperately. There's so many different things that you have to do, right? You hear all these things about, oh, your resume has to be this way and that way, and your cover letter and all of those kinds of things, right? There's all those components of the job search, not to mention the whole what do I want to do? For those of you who might not know what you want to do, that's a whole different arena. And trust me, there are resources on all of those areas. And I'm going to share some of my favorites and hopefully get some of yours put out there as well. So great. So let's go ahead. Okay, and actually Terry says, thank you. Always hard to start, but more fun as you get into it because you're always surprised by, the new kinds of jobs that you never thought of. That's a really good attitude that you have there, Terry, and I commend you for that. And I would encourage you to keep that optimistic attitude, right? That attitude of wonder and surprise and wow, this is interesting. I never would have thought of it. That's a really good attitude to have because it helps you present yourself in a more positive, in a more uplifting type of way. And sometimes it's hard to keep that positive mental attitude in the job search, especially when there are frustrations like, let's face it, rejection. Most of us are going to be rejected several times, right? Within any job search, before you might find that one. You might be really lucky once and you get the first job you go for. Wonderful. But chances are you are going to, experience those lows as well. So that can be really frustrating, but keeping that kind of looking at the positive and trying to be optimistic is really important. And I actually have a webinar on maintaining optimism in the job search. It's called The Future is Bright, Maintaining Optimism in the Job Search. And it's on the Global Reentry, the playlist, which Danielle, if you can kindly drop that in the chat box, that would be great. Just the Global Reentry playlist that has all of our recorded webinars that you can go to and listen to at your convenience, including that one. Great. So good. Ronnie, cautious optimism. That's exactly right. Cautious optimism. You don't want to be that, oh, everything's so great, where it almost comes across as fake, but that cautious optimism that there is something out there for you because there is. And you will get something. It's just a matter of time, and it's keeping yourself positive and tapping into resources that exist for the job search, especially now, right? In this, everything's electric, everything's online, that type of thing. There's still a lot that you can do. So I do want to ask, what are people's biggest frustrations with the job search so that I can tailor a little more of my kind of, talk with you and our dialogue here today on those areas that you might need more assistance with. And I can at least refer you to some great sources. Okay. So take an opportunity in the chat box just to write down what's your biggest frustration that you maybe feel like you need resources on how to handle within the job search. Is it, career decision making? Is it, organizing yourself? Is it, writing a resume, figuring out how to do that to really show your skills in different markets and things? Is it interviewing assistance, ideas, resources, things like that, right? So just put those in there, and I'm looking to see if there's any coming in so far. Thank you so much. Taylor, being overwhelmed. Yeah, that's a big one, right? Feeling overwhelmed with too many places to search for jobs. And you're absolutely right. There are so many places that if you were to look at all of them, you would be completely overwhelmed. I don't honestly think you could look through all of the places that exist. The key is identifying the most productive places for you and what your job search is. And we'll talk about some of the most, productive general ones, right? The best general resources. But depending on what you're looking to get into, you're going to, want to get advice on what are the best ones, for you specifically. There are going to be some that are good for federal or good for, maybe it's even more specialized, global health, things like that. And that's where you'll also tap into your network a little bit to find out some of that as well. So great. And then let's see some of the other frustrations here. Being overwhelmed with, yeah, you said too many places to search, right? Feeling like I need to narrow down to optimize your time. Absolutely. And we're going to talk about some of the best ones. That's what the purpose of this webinar is really to help you identify those that are maybe worth more time than others. Trisha, ridiculous self promotion in letters. Yeah. I get it. It's hard. And I think RPCVs in general tend to be humble, which is great. You don't want to be, very pompous and, oh, I'm the greatest thing, all of that. But when you're too humble, it can really, unfortunately, keep you from getting those jobs that you're going for and keep you from being seen as the best candidate. So while it's good to keep humble, you want to also, be able to state your qualifications, accurately, right? And promote yourself as related to the job that you're going for so that you can make that best case that you should be, within those top considered to at least be brought in for an interview. And then you can really, furthermore, promote your skills and experiences without bragging, but rather, talking about the accomplishments that you've had and how you've done them and, how you've achieved what you've achieved, which is that's not bragging. That is talking about, your experience and your skills. And you need to be able to tout that to be able to get a job. A good job. So great. Awesome. Let's see. There's other ones that are coming. There's a lot in here. Thank you folks for really coming out with so many things here. This is wonderful. Not knowing which sectors are interested in my job skills. Yeah, Alicia, that's another good point. There are certainly, job skills that are imperative for certain careers. I would encourage you to, like, if you flip that, right, and acknowledge that you have a lot of transferable skills, right? So looking at maybe what your main skills are and then some of the resources to help you maybe think through, what kinds of jobs are in need of or demand that kind of a skill set. That can really help you, right? And yet know that you have a lot of transferable skills so you can go into other areas as well and learn some of the how to, but you have those really great skills that can translate to other areas. That brings to mind for me one of the like Department of Labor has they're charged with really compiling, like, employment stats and all of that. And so there actually are some good resources on there that talk about different types of jobs categories, right? And what skills are needed, things like that. So I would encourage you to check out, you can do a Google search on, Department of Labor employment statistics, or employment, skills. They have a lot of a whole area of DOL is dedicated to that. So you should be able to get some good insight from that as well. Okay. And let's see, takes time to customize each resume for each position. Absolutely, that it does. And that's one of the reasons you really can't do, like, some people are like, I'm just gonna pump out 20 resumes a day and just I'll get something if I'm putting that many out. Well, the problem with that is they're not able to tailor those resumes and customize them, which you're talking about customizing, Karen, and that's absolutely right. You need to and want to customize them. I would much rather see you send out less resumes and really work hard on customizing them and getting, where you're going to have a better chance to, get that interview, get that chance for further consideration, right? Because it does take a lot. You want to work in those key phrases, right, that are in the job, all of those kinds of things. Okay. Uh, let's see. Nora says, I want to broaden the types of jobs I would look for and don't know what to search for. Yep. That's where I think to some degree your, Department of Labor, the resources that they have for the job seeker can be helpful to you. But also, I would say in your networking, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, networking and some online resources and other things, but really tapping into, other, types of jobs that might use your skills, right? Even doing your simple, I mean, and this sounds so basic, but Google is your best friend, putting in a Google search, best jobs for an introvert, whatever other skills you have, or, things like that and see what comes up from there. Chances are there's going to be items that you've never even thought about, and then you can take that job title, learn more about it by putting that into maybe the DOL or other, areas for jobs to see what kinds of jobs might come up for that. So great. Let's see. Simona says my biggest frustration. Let's see here. Um, I've been out of the market for quite a while, was a caretaker with an ill family member, and now I'm both experienced and also not. That's a really good point, and that's a difficult situation in many ways. I honor that and acknowledge that, it can be difficult, right? After you've spent a, great deal of time maybe caring for a loved one, and yet that is something that employers understand. We all, right, have parents. We all have family members that someday will need that kind of a help. And boy, it's admirable that you were able to really take that time and work and help in that capacity. And there are ways to actually put that on your resume. I'm not going to go into it now because we're really trying to stay focused on, the like online resources for the job search. But I can tell you that if you listen to, I did a webinar on explaining employment gaps on your resume and in the interview. And that was within the last month that I've done that one. So if you look again on that, where Danielle put it in the chat box, and if you joined this after she put it in, she can maybe drop it in again. But our playlist of all of our sessions are going to be on there. But if you also, again, do a Google search or, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite online sources. The Muse is one of mine. I love them mostly because I feel like they have the same kind of philosophy as I have, and I feel like they're just really a good they've got really good resources and on almost every topic, right? And the other one is balanced careers. And if you just put those in, I oftentimes, if I'm searching for advice on a specific topic, I'll put in those, whatever the question is, how to explain employment gaps, the Muse, and I'll get, good information on that. So I would urge you to do that to get a little more resources on doing that as you come back. But it is definitely possible, and you can actually list it on your resume even as a job, right? Caretaker, and for family, for ill, family member, that's definitely doable to do that as well. Okay, great. Let's see in here. What else we have? So having far more experience in certain components of the job requirements, Jocelyn says, but underqualified in other components. Yeah, and isn't that the way it goes, right? It's not always the case that you look at a job description and you absolutely meet or exceed every single component, right? The good news about that is oftentimes employers are putting out everything they'd like, but they're not necessarily expecting to get everything. So oftentimes the most important skills are on the top or toward the top and other kind of would like ones, are closer to the bottom sometimes. So just know that as well. If there are certain areas that you don't, know, really, emphasize your transferable skills, emphasize what you do know if it's at all related or something else, and your quick learner, abilities like in an interview talking about if they ask you about a subject that you don't a skill, or maybe it's an internet, Trello or something like that, and you don't have, experience in it, you could certainly say, well, while I don't have substantial experience in Trello itself, I am very familiar with Slack and other online organizational tools, whatever, so you can kind of do those kinds of things too. Okay. But great. So let's and overwhelmed. Yes, I think there's a lot have said overwhelmed. So there's a lot of information. There's a lot of really thank you for all of these ideas there. This is great. Ageism, right? I have another webinar on that, ageism and how to, get around that. You can also do a Google search on, dealing with ageism in the job search, the Muse, or my favorite, balanced career. So things like that, you can get a lot more information, but that is definitely a challenge. And there are a lot of resources online on ageism. For example, even, AARP has some really good resources. And there's, just a lot of the big, websites that I'm going to be talking about later have specific things on ageism and, being too experienced, if you will, looking at a job that maybe you're overqualified for, but you're making a conscious decision that you want that in your life, and how do you explain that? So great. Wonderful. All right. So let's go ahead and continue here. There are many online resources, like I said. I started to ask earlier a little bit your favorite online resource for the job search. And some folks, Danielle, did anyone drop in any when it was early on, when it was while I was uploading the slide deck? Did anyone come out with any of their favorite online resources?
I'm checking right now.
No problem. While you check the
Washington.
early on, I can see Guillermo, you're saying thank you so much. RPCV Portal and USA Jobs, absolutely. RPCV Portal is the Peace Corps, like their portal, and I'm very familiar with that because I used to work in that area for 12 years at Peace Corps. So, absolutely, the portal has a lot of good activities and events and things like that coming up, and we list our events on the portal as well, so you can find a lot of good things there. If you just go to peacecorps.gov/careers, you'll get to their main page, and then it'll take you kind of into the areas. But the jobs board, that's the Peace Corps jobs board that has hundreds of jobs on it at any given time, is just peacecorps.gov/career link. And that can be another one, peacecorps.gov/career link. Okay, great. So any other favorites that you have, folks? Anyone else want to add something here? Maybe another resource that you found helpful within some jobs at RPCV Portal are outdated. You're absolutely right. Some of them will still show up. There should be a closing date. Sometimes they don't put a closing date, or sometimes I think sometimes with lack of staff, there's been some shortages there that doesn't always happen maybe as well. But absolutely. Maine Association for Nonprofits. Great, Trisha. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. And I can guarantee you folks who are in other states are going to have an organization like that, right? Associations can be a really good resource for the job seeker. And I mean, even associations for, like, this is nonprofit sector, right? But there might be an associate. There's an association for almost everything, right? So almost any industry there's going to be, right? The associations for international development are associations like SID, Society for International Development. They're the ones that just put on a career fair recently that was great, where with Brazen, platform where they were able to have like one-on-one conversations and things like that. It was wonderful. They're a really good, resource, and they're supportive of RPCVs as well. So, checking into what they have, right? There's different chapters of that too. There's the national, and then there's the Washington. So SID Washington is the local DC one, for example. So checking, but almost just do a Google search on associations for, whatever. That's a great, you can get some tips. When you reach out to them, you can explain to them, I am, a returned Peace Corps volunteer who's, if you were evacuated, you kind of, you can even share that story a little bit because it's definitely compelling. I'm wondering what, if any, opportunities are there for learning. I'm interested in this field and want to learn from, and wondering what, if any, types of events you put on. Some of them will want you to join and they'll charge you. Others might allow you to peruse part of it free, especially given you might be a job seeker, right? So definitely thinking about those kinds of things as well can be great. Okay, wonderful. And let's see, we have another one that is, oh yeah, yep. The careers and career link. Thank you. Yep. And you can usually just put in peacecorps.gov/career link and it will take you there. But thank you. You put the longer one, which is great. I really appreciate that. And you sharing that. Are there any other resources that have come in, Danielle, from maybe early on that I missed?
Yeah, I see Idealist, I see local RPCV Facebook groups, Indeed,
Great.
LinkedIn.
Great. Oh, that's wonderful. Those are great ones. The local Peace Corps groups I'm going to do first. They are the affiliate groups, right, of NPCA, right? There's the local, you have the NorCal group, which is the Northern California Peace Corps Association. You have the CAPCO, which is Chicago Area Peace Corps, right, Association. You have the, New York, they're all over, the regional ones, right? So I would highly recommend that you connect with, if you haven't already, your nearest location or the one where you're looking to move. If you're looking to try to get a job, in DC, you might want to link up with the RPCVs of Washington, right, group, or whatever one in that area, because that's people who live in that area. They know that area. They're going to be good resources and for contacts. And let's just face it, RPCVs are good people and they're going to want to help you when you reach out to them as well. So there's a certain way that you can reach out to them that can kind of minimize the expectation, not asking for an informational interview, but rather, wondering if you might have 15, 20 minutes of your time at your convenience to do a career chat. Oops, someone's internet's going off. If you can maybe all mute, that's great, except for me. Great. Okay. Excellent. So great. And then we're going to go over, like you said, LinkedIn, Idealist. Those are great ones. In fact, those are some of the best ones out there. I have a whole listing of, and this isn't just my opinion. This is actually from online, from some of these respected, organizations that have really, done a lot of research on it and such, and had that information. So let's go ahead, and I just wanted to make a comment here about, the job search is a multifaceted um undertaking, right? And it's a big one and it can be very overwhelming. So I think breaking it down into those different areas and those different categories to be able to work a little bit on, maybe, okay, online resources for figuring out what I want to do. That might be the first step before you're doing those applications, right? Is really figuring out what you want to do, right? And what that involves. And then venturing into, okay, so then how do I do a resume for that industry? And how do I meet contacts and network in that industry, right? And then, so all of this, if you break it down, I think it's a little less overwhelming. Several people in the chat box did say overwhelming. It's why I don't like the job search, because it's overwhelming. That came through very clear. So that these are some of the ways that you might, be able to do that, right? So as we think about how we can break that down, but I want to go over first the 10 best job search engines of 2020. Hey, Trisha, is there any way you can mute your microphone? Thank you so much. Sorry,
I
it was giving some weird.
thing. I'm sorry.
No problem. It's weird. That's fine. No problem. So these are this is according to the Balanced Careers, which is one of the websites that I said is my very favorite. They have topics. One of the writers there, she's just really talented, and she does a really good job of articles. And then they have a really great graphics department where they have all these awesome graphics. Which, if you've been in my past webinars, I'll share some of those, giving them credit, of course. But it's a great organization too, and really good free assistance. Most of these that I'm talking about are going to be the free aspects. Some of them will have like paid aspects if you want, but I truly think that you can do a quality job search without spending money on like paid things, or having someone write your resume for you. Instead, get some of the best templates and some of the ways to write it, and try it in that regard, and have people take a look at it, share it with me, things like that. Okay. So some of the ones on here, Indeed, people already, I think they had said Idealist. Idealist is a really good one. Indeed is also a very good one. Similar, that's the one that kind of wins the quote unquote best overall, right? They've got a lot of different services and a lot of different free aspects to help you for free job postings, right? But also information on how do I, do whatever it is. How do I write the best resume, how should I answer difficult interview questions, things like that. They have a lot of really good information to help you. And they'll do special events on occasion, mostly online, right? Where they'll have, now there was a time pre COVID, and there hopefully will be a time eventually where where you can actually, they'll come to different big areas and they'll do Indeed's job fair or Indeed's, career event, and you can go and actually, go to it and bring your resumes and things like that. So an in-person, kind of old-fashioned one, if you will. And then LinkedIn also is great, and that's kind of the best overall, right? Runner up for that. LinkedIn not only is, and I have some slides on this later that I'll go into some aspects of it, but LinkedIn, it is the best online, like, marketing tool for yourself, right? In terms of, I mean, networking tool to network with people and find people in your industry or in your region or in, it can do, searches on all those different things, right? And we'll talk a little more about the limits that they have, because they do have, two different uh versions. They have the free platform, and then they have the premium platform, which is actually quite a bit of money. I think it's like 30 some dollars a month or even more. Honestly, I don't think it's worth it to pay for the paid platform unless you're a recruiter, where you get all these additional bells and whistles with recruiting. But for the job seeker, what it basically gives you, the biggest thing is it gives you that free, unlimited messages, unlimited searches when you're going through and trying to find people, and, past, who worked at the company and things like that, doing a people search, right? But you can get around that. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about that, and then I'm gonna refer you to some other resources for finding out more about that. Um, then there's some that are specific for industries, like Dice for tech jobs. That's the one that comes out highest. Now, are there other ones that are great? Absolutely, but this is the one that comes out, as the best of, according to this, this rating here. And then think about, what's great about, different job sites is there are so many, and they're focused on different things, right? So flex jobs is best for remote jobs, right? And right now almost everything's remote, but there will be a time where it won't be. And if you are looking to be remote, there's many that are, open to that, and clearly many more now after COVID. I think that it's proved that we can get our work done and all of that, so there probably will be more flexibility on that, but that's one of the ones for remote jobs, right? Snag a job for like hourly workers, and let's say you're doing your job search, but you know that it's going to take you some time, but you don't have unlimited funds. I get it. That you can just not work. You need to take a job. And so maybe you're looking at, a job that's, a contract or an hourly, or even in like the gig economy, right? In that, like maybe you're even contemplating, jobs like maybe it's an Uber driver, or maybe it's, doing grocery shopping for, for people who are, can't get out or can't go out safely now, things like that. So that can be a good resource. And then, Google for jobs, obviously, I mean, that's a huge one, right? And there's just a lot that will come in, very easy platform, right? um, Simply Hired on this one, right? So finding a lot of different kinds of jobs, and that's one that a lot of people don't really know about. So thinking about trying these ones that I'm sharing here, and let me know how you like it, what you find, what you enjoy. Ladders is one of the ones for if you're more of a senior executive, or high level. Ladders is one that's it's apparently the best according to this, right? It's one that's very commonly looked at, for opportunities. But again, LinkedIn is for all levels, so a lot of people in high level executives will use LinkedIn as well and be good with that. Glassdoor is a really good website for vetting your companies that you're looking at, for finding out more about them, organizational culture, salaries, even, right? Things like that. You can find out a lot on Glassdoor. The one caveat I give is that when people are more likely to post when they if they're going to take the time to fill out a survey or post or rate something on Glassdoor, their organization that they left, for example, they're going to oftentimes be more willing to do that if they're angry. They want to get it out. They want to say, oh, they stink. So sometimes the ratings themselves, you don't want to only say, oh, well, they had not a great rating, so I'm not going to consider them. That may or may not be something that is, and you may find out more information by talking to people who've worked there and things like that, that can help you with more information. But it's a very good resource, especially like salaries and things. One of the better. Link up, most current job listings, like they're very, up, they up to speed, that kind of thing. I haven't used linked up as much. but it comes out in this best of as well. So these are not the only ones to use, and please don't look at this list and think you can't use any others. This is just like one in each of these categories, if you will, and there's so many other categories. So get out there, start doing some of the other ones, see the ones that you like. If there's any that you can think of now, for example, what are additional job search engine sites that you would really promote? And if it's for a specific type, include that in your comment in the chat box. So, whatever it is, ABC for teaching or whatever, so that people can kind of share these. I want to make sure that, we share as many of these as we can. Again, as I said, I want to make sure this is more of a resource sharing type of opportunity, because you all have great insight as well, from your own experience. So I think it's always great. Uh, yeah, Trisha, a good point. I think it's important to consider where you are and what sites are used most in your area. Absolutely. And that's part of your research if you're moving to a new area, or you're in an area and you're trying to get a job right in that specific area. See what are the best ones. You're going to have some of the sites are probably going to tend toward, especially the ones that are development jobs, right? They may not be the best sites to check if you're looking for a job in Iowa. I'm from Iowa. I can say that, right? There's nothing wrong with Iowa. Just there may not be as much international development. There isn't, right? You're going to find that more, oftentimes in, East Coast. DC's big, New York, California. It depends, but there's going to be different sectors. There's a lot. Where is it? I think it's like Oregon and some areas where there's a lot of the Pacific kind of, islands and that type of thing, organizations that might, focus on certain regions of the world. So absolutely. Dave's ESL. Yes. Excellent for teaching abroad. Thank you. Yes. Awesome. Trisha, you agree. I see. That's great. Absolutely. So you need to, yeah, factor in where you're doing your job search and where you're wanting to live. And, if you're doing a remote, job search and you're trying to maybe relocate to a different area, there's also things to take into consideration. And again, I'm not to be a broken record, but please, go to the global reentry playlist on NPCA's YouTube site. And we just did one on relocating in the context of a job search. So you can get more information on that kind of thing too. So great. Anything else coming out here that I might have missed?
Jodi, there's one question in the chat. It says, a
Yep.
lot of these websites offer an easy apply option. Do you recommend that, or do you recommend going through specific companies' websites?
I actually think both, right? I mean, your LinkedIn, for example, and it depends on which one you're talking about. LinkedIn has a very good, where you can choose to have your profile and resume and such searchable and viewable by employers, which can really help you in getting contacted. Maybe too much, right? To some degree. But so that can be a really good and they'll have oftentimes that fast apply, where if you want to apply for this job, just simply click here and you can choose oftentimes which resume you want sent, or it might be the one that's just on profile. So it really depends on the I would say on the job board, how to go about that. I think doing it, either way can be good. I think it also depends, if they're shooting, like they may not be sending your PDF of your resume. And so it depends on what your background and experience are. If you're filling out information, kind of like on USA Jobs, right? You build your USA Jobs profile, and I wouldn't always want that going out. Now it depends. For federal, you build it there and it's okay and it's good because they know how it's organized and they like it. Do I like how it looks? If I were to use that for a different site or for something that's external, no. But what I'm saying is there are some of those sites will maybe have you put your information in a certain way, and that builds kind of a profile for you that may not be a resume. So I guess I would ask, if you're doing the quick job apply, do they allow you to attach a PDF or a Word version of your resume in addition to what they have? I would see that would factor into my decision on how I would approach it. I wouldn't just go for the quickest to save time. I would definitely try to see if it makes sense to to do that, or to just just go the old and do it the long way. That might be better for some. So okay. Was there another question? Did you say?
One just came in. It said, what do you think the balanced careers left off of their best search list?
Mm. Well, idealist is not on there. That would be my number one. And idealist is a very good one, especially in like, nonprofit or service or, those kinds of things. That would probably be my biggest one. But I mean, it depends on in what area. I mean, these are, your Indeed, Idealist, LinkedIn, all of those. I'm trying to think. Oh, I know the one that's been left off here is, as I said earlier, RPCV Career Link. Right? That's a good one. And especially for RPCVs, these are employers that are putting jobs out because they know RPCVs, they know of them, they know how great you are and that you're good workers and you're talented. So that's a very localized one, right? That would never come out in the best of, and you wouldn't want it to because you want to keep that more to not secret, but to RPCVs only, so you have less competition too. So, but yeah, so there. I mean, there's so many others too. I mean, I can't even go into all of them. But if you have a specific question on like an industry or whatever, shoot me an email. You can shoot me an email at jodi@rpcv.org. Danielle, if you can put that in the chat box, that's great. jodi@rpcv.org. And first do, I would say, your due diligence of just trying to do your own Google search of best search engine for whatever, and see what they come out with. And then, I'm happy to complement that too if I do have insight into it. Okay. All right. So, okay, and Trisha shares, I think it's much better to go to the site directly, Save the Children, American Red Cross, UNICEF. Why keep the middleman? Yeah, I I think there's two things on that. I agree that when you go direct, you're able to put, things just like you want to. And if there is a job posting for it that's there, I would almost choose both. I mean, why not go to the source, right? Put your stuff in, directly, but then also the LinkedIn, because sometimes employers do look at LinkedIn as, okay, we have LinkedIn, we have whatever, we have it for a reason. It gives us a list. We can look at them quickly, their profiles very quickly, much quicker than opening different resumes and whatever. So they might do that as kind of a screening type of thing. So I don't think it's bad to apply to both either, right? Great. What international? Yeah, what sites are best for fields or international opportunities? Yeah, in general, your international opportunities. I was mentioning a little bit earlier. Society for International Development, their main one. They have really good ones. What you can do is go through their member list of who's a member in the organization, and that gives you a lot of the organizations that you can then target on. Oh, let's see what this organization does. Where do they work? What, and you can, and it's big. There's a lot of members in SID, for example, right? There's also Devx. Devx is another, and they have, job search types of thing, job search board, and some other resources, lots of good resources for the international development type of arena. So I would definitely put them on the list and check out with them. And they might have, events coming up as well. They oftentimes do free events, right? On different, international development, breaking into international development or whatever. We are going to be doing it's not finalized the date yet, but I'm going to invite Society for International Development. We're going to do a panel, and we're going to do that as a podcast for international development, and really talking more about them sharing about their resources for the job seeker, but also about the field in general. So it'll be a good one not to miss. So keep a lookout on our events page. It'll probably be in April or late March, but look at our events page, which maybe Danielle, you can put in there, just peacecorpsconnect.org/events. You can always see the latest events that we have going on, and know ones that you might want to participate in. Okay. So thank you. Thank you, Danielle, for doing that. Awesome. All right. So let's go on here and talk, because we have 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure to make the best use of our time and answer your questions. So if you do have questions, please drop them in there. I want to put in a few, for career decision making, because it's so hard, thinking about making, choosing a career. And I always say to people, don't get too tied into one career, because chances are in today's day and age, you will have many careers. And that's really, I find that reassuring because it's not like you're just going to have to be in one career. Not that there's anything wrong with staying in one. If you absolutely love it and you want to be in it, that's great. But you have that flexibility and freedom. But there's some really good resources that are now they're online. They were print at one point. um, what colors your parachute is it is the most classic job seekers, career changers manual that's out there. Um, and it literally was first written in, I think it was the late 60s or early 70s, and it's been updated practically every year. So it's very appropriate for today's day and age. And they have online things as well. They do a like career decision making or a little workbook that's a thin little workbook that has some pictures that you're doing, and you're really good as well. There's some very good for those of you who like kind of the tactile, like going through some of those exercises to think about, okay, what's my flower in my career? What are my important parts? What are like that kind of thing? I really find that helpful as well. Richard Bowles is I mean, he's just known, very, very famous, probably one of the most famous writers in the career decision making field. Knock 'em Dead is another one that's, a job search guide that has, resumes, things like that. Again, it's a classic, but it's updated frequently. So make sure if you are looking at a print version that you're getting one of the more recent. I mean, if you're getting one in the last 3 years, you're probably okay, 2, 3 years, but you don't want to look at the one from 1985. It's a lot different, right? So both of those. And again, there's online. They have online sites that have some good information that I would say, check into. Both provide detailed advice on all aspects really of the job search. So it's a very comprehensive resource. Okay. And then I do want to say, I want to plug, we are going to be doing another boot camp, and we're going to be starting it the first week in April of 2021, just in case somebody's looking at this later. And it's going to be for the mid career professional this time. We did one, a job seekers, boot camp a couple months ago, and it went over well, I think, and we had a good response. And we're now going to focus more. I think it's going to be mid-career relaunch is what we're going to we're going to kind of target it as. So for people who maybe are more mid-careers, that might be 10 to 20 years, whatever, experience, you're thinking about maybe or you are wanting to change careers or change direction or change jobs. This is the event for you. And what we're going to do for that is the first 2 weeks we're going to actually have the boot camp. We're going to have a pre-boot camp for folks that are really unsure what they want to do, so that people who are participating in the boot camp, the mid-career, professional boot camp, and we're not going to kick you out if you're a little younger than or whatever, less years of experience, whatever. It's more experience than it is age, absolutely. But just know that that's what we're kind of targeting. So it'll be kind of targeted toward that. So the first 2 weeks will be more of that help with career decision making and some homework in between 1 week weekly events, right? Webinars on, I think it's Thursdays from 2 to 3:30, and then there'll be some homework in between. And then that middle of April, we'll start with the 4-week boot camp, which, will incorporate those other folks who are, okay, I know what I want to change to, or more or less, I have it narrowed down. And how do I do this as a mid-career professional? So if you're interested in that, our events page will have more information. I'm also going to be probably announcing it in next Tuesday's Global Reentry newsletter. If you're getting those, there'll be something about it at least coming out, and then you'll be able to probably register within a couple weeks from there, or so. So keep that on your agenda if that is something that you're interested in and you think would be helpful. Okay. Great. Let's go. And personality and type indicators. These are, I'm sure many of you know many different ones. There's the Myers-Briggs, there's Strengths Finders, there's, the Keirsey, there's all kinds of different types of, the theory behind it is if you know your personality or your strengths and your kind of what you're good at, you can do what do what you are, like find a job. This is one of the books here about it, where it's find a job that is a good fit for you based on your what kind of a person you are, right? So in the MBTI, I am an ENFP, right? The extrovert, intuitive, feeling, perceiving. That's my 4-letter one. And there is so much online about whether it's career, whether it's all these things. You could put best jobs for ENFP if you know what yours is, right? Now, the Myers-Briggs does, cost money to do, so, maybe you do one of the free versions, which are there are some versions that are, based on, like, the Keirsey, Keirsey, I believe, that is correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, that is definitely, one that, you might you get the same kinds of information from, okay? So, Strong Campbell Interest Inventory, many others, right? So some are free, some have a small fee or a fee, but they can be helpful in just kind of grounding yourself. And I always say to people, don't look at it and say, "Oh, they told me I should be a what fill in the blank. I don't want to be that. That's just worthless." Well, it has to do with how you answered questions. So if you answered questions that you want a non-traditional career, outdoors, in the like outdoors things like that, you could potentially get a career that might come up as sanitary, garbage collector, whatever, and you know that you don't want to do that, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That is a very noble career, trust me. I have a lot of respect for our local folks around here, but it's not what you're looking to do. Don't throw the entire response out because of one suggestion. That you just need to know where it comes from. Okay, so, onward from that, yeah, you can get these books in the libraries a lot of times. Sixpersonalities.com is a free one. Thank you, Simona. That's great. Yes, and actually, what you'll wanna do to capture any of these great ideas that are coming out on the chat box at the end before you sign off, make sure that you, download the chat box, which is really easy. You go to the bottom of the chat box and you look for the little 3 dots that are inside the little square. You click on that and it'll say download chat, and it will download to wherever you have your Zoom, stuff saved. So that way you can go back and actually look at that. I'm going to be following up with an email that will have actually several recommendations and some websites and things on it too, but that will be different from the chat box. Okay. So great. Wonderful. All right. Let's go on. Organizing your job search really quickly in terms of online resources for organizing it, because this is one of the areas that people I think get most overwhelmed with, right? How do you stay organized when you're looking at so many different jobs and you're applying for a lot of different jobs in different areas? It's essential that you stay organized for your own sanity as much as for you looking like a professional when you do get contacted by somebody and they want to interview you. You don't want to, when they reach out to you and they say, "Yes, we'd like to interview for you for the blank blank position." And you're like, "Oh, what?" You can have, if you have a spreadsheet and do whatever works for you, right? You can use, I just generally do a simple, Excel or Google, Google, the Google version, right? Google Sheets. And you literally you just put, the employer name, the job title, the, closing date, the link to the job description, but don't have that be to the online link only. Have it be, back it up by downloading that job description, because when they close the job before they interview, oftentimes that will go down. You won't have that. So you don't want to have to say to the person that's reaching out to you to say, "Hey, we want to interview you." "Oh, great. Can you send me the job description again?" No, that doesn't make you look very uh, polished. So do whatever system works for you. Check with your friends. This is a great one to put out there on maybe one of the, your groups. Maybe it's RPCV jobs. What do you find is the best way to organize yourself and your jobs, that you're applying for? Any samples people have of, spreadsheets, whatever. And you're not going to really be printing that out, right? It's just going to be more for you to have it. And then you can refer to it and and pick and choose. I would even put a link to the resume used, because you're going to have a lot of different resumes that you're using. You want to be consistent in your interview and from your resume, right? So you want to make sure that you are, how are you projecting yourself to them? All those things are important. And so all I'm saying is there are some online tools to help, with that, whether it's using, just your basic spreadsheet, or if you're treating it like your job search like a project management kind of, and you want to use a tool like Trello, or one of those to keep, Slack, to track your projects, that you're doing, whatever it works for you, right? So there's lots of different things, but I would definitely encourage you to do that. Okay. Great. So keeping organized, right? So, I said the spreadsheet, the contents, all of that, but other tools like, the Muse, there's a slide that I'm going to share with you. And again, that's one of my favorite sources. I like their online tracker that they use as an example, but it really comes down to you and personalizing it for what makes sense to you, right? Just personalize it and do what needs to be done. Okay. And you can actually include dates for next steps to help you stay organized, right? And to help the project, keep moving. And this is the example I'm talking about. And they have, this literally like it's, and you can just put into I'll try to actually, I think I have that in my email that's ready to go out to you all afterwards. The job search tracker by the Muse, but it they have, everything. I mean, there's the general information, pre-interview, post-interview, all of that. Then you can stay alert too. I don't care how long has it been, because it's hard to, if they said they were going to get back to you in a week, like, after a week, don't necessarily worry, because a lot of times it takes twice as long, right? But if it's been 2 weeks and they haven't, well, then maybe you want to follow up, So if you have that follow up person, their email listed or whatever, you could drop them a note and say, I just wanted to follow up on, next steps for the hiring process after blah, 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 and go from there. So hopefully that makes sense. If you all have questions, now is the time I'm going to ask you, because we have about 5 minutes left. If you have final questions here, definitely put those in, and I will do my best to answer those. I want to make sure that that's a priority. But as I said earlier, the best online tool for networking, LinkedIn, it really does come down to the, single best, and that's across the board. I think almost everyone would say that, right? It's huge in terms of the most expansive, right? 690 million users, 200 countries. That's a lot. That's like in many, many, many places, right? So it's not just for the US job search. So that's the other good thing, right? It's international. So my tips on that with LinkedIn, I mean, in terms of keeping organized and having it help you, don't hesitate to use their groups. Join groups of interest. They can be groups of interest, a passion area of yours like climate change, or it could be, join the group that's, for whatever sector that you're looking at, or things like that, right? You're going to find a lot of those, like, best groups on LinkedIn for the job seeker. That's what I would put in as a search and see what comes up, right? By being a group member, it allows you to send a message, an instant message, right? Your messenger, without any, like, you don't have to be connected to them because they're in your group. So that's a really good advice. That's a really good tip, and good thing to know. And then you can share resources within the groups, comment on things here and there, because, not every day, but sometimes comment on things, share a resource that seems interesting. That's going to help you be seen as more of like a thought leader, or getting your name out there so people recognize you, which is really helpful in networking. And it really does come down to networking these days. So, yes. So, tutorials, yep, there's tutorials that are available, right? So, and we have a couple separate tutorials, or I should say webinars, on using LinkedIn effectively, but go to the LinkedIn one, their help one. They have a lot of ones on how to do it as well, to really get a handle. It's not that hard, and things change. So that's the frustrating part, is, the way that you did a people search before and maybe now, and, they change little things every once in a while. So, Facebook, many consider, myself included, I consider Facebook more personal. Now, that said, would I absolutely put out, maybe, if I'm not trying to hide that I'm doing a job search, right? Like, let's say, you're in a position where you're working, but you don't want them to know you're doing a job. Well, don't announce it on Facebook. Hey, I'm doing a job search. You might instead put something like, "Hey, I wondering if anyone has, contacts in the whatever field. I'm interested in learning more," or whatever. Trying to connect with somebody, or whatever. However you put it, and then see what your friends and friends of friends know, and who they know. Right? And that's great. That just allows you to make that bigger circle, or that web of alliance that I really think of LinkedIn as being. It's pretty amazing how big it is, and how big you get tapped in. Right? It's definitely the most expansive, as I said. Recruiters use it, right, to really that one click, application that we were talking about a little bit ago, right? Majority of employers, and this is surprising to people, majority of employers do check candidates' LinkedIn profiles at some point in the hiring process. So I would strongly recommend that you have one if you don't have one. And I know it can be daunting and it can seem very overwhelming, but you can do a very basic one and then add to it. The other thing is, typically they do recommend, it's considered creepy not to have a picture. And I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't want a picture for like privacy, whatever. But it really is considered people they just it's very helpful to have it there, and you should on your resume. Absolutely not. Do not have it. But okay. And have it be a professional type of picture. It doesn't have to be a professional person taking it, but you can get a decent one from a cell phone even, but you don't want it to be you carrying a beer or a glass of wine or, with friends and cutting yourself out. You want to have it be you and kind of, the upper part of your body really is what you're focusing on more. It could be chest up or, whatever. Something like that. So great. So LinkedIn is key. Networking, as I said, that's really leading into the whole networking thing. And so networking is not cheating the system. Networking is tapping into your web or alliance of resources and people who may know other people who can provide information that might be helpful to you and that you might be able to provide information to. So it's using your existing network as much as it is expanding your network, right? So you can identify some of those, like networking events, like yes, like in person or now, online events, even on, Eventbrite, Meetup, some different things where you maybe put in keywords that are related to what you're looking to do. You can find some new ones. Some will be better than others. So you just need to take that and run with it as well. Great. Oh, thank you, Terry. I'm glad you found value in this webinar. We are at the point right now where I just want to ask if there's any other questions. And if anyone has any other resources they want to share, dump that into the chat box. I'm going to go up because I think I saw one about USA jobs and I just want to let's see the muse. Yes, that's great. Let's see here for Jodi for US. Yes. Sasa asks, Jodi, for USA jobs filter, there's a Peace Corps option. I no longer have NCE, finished my service in 2014. Should I still filter on jobs for Peace Corps volunteers? You could filter to see what comes up. You're not going to be able to get an NCE job. What you're going to find is that Peace Corps volunteer one is put in there for NCE, but it could give you guidance onto what kinds of jobs these organizations look to RPCVs for. So that could be helpful for you as well. And don't be overly scared of the open to all US citizens area. As I've said in many of my webinars, I've worked in various agencies and I've never used NCE. And because I came back and I didn't go into the federal government within a year, I wasn't someone who did that right away, right? So I was able to get in. You can get in. It can be difficult. It can be challenging, or it can take longer, right? And it means you have to do a better job, an even better job at really making your application very strong so that and studying the occupational questionnaire, which you can screen, when they look at this is what's required and the questionnaire, it'll have a link to preview it. Always do that. That's talking about the skills, knowledge, and abilities, right? The KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. You need to be able to answer the top or close to the top in most cases, if you're doing a open to all US citizens application, to be able to probably realistically get into that cert or that final, top certification of folks who are going to be forwarded on for further consideration to the resume panel to pick who's going to come in for an interview, that kind of thing. So I guess my point is not that you have to have the highest in your answers, and they're not always in order, and that's really important as well to realize. They're not always in order, but you can tell when there's the lower one and there's a higher one. And if people have an interest in that, stay on for a few minutes after we end this, and I'm happy to do a little talking about what the occupational questionnaire might look like, giving you a sample one of like somebody with no experience or education but no experience, and then some of the terminology that's used in federal government that is kind of confusing. So I'm happy to do that afterwards if people have that question. So Sas, if you want to stay on, let's see any other ones. I was Peace Corps and worked for another. Do you mean another federal agency for 5 years with a federal agency? Okay. Do I have non-compete or any other status that I should be looking for under Fed jobs? It depends on the agency that you worked with, right? If you were in what's called a competitive service agency where you have status, then if you worked there for 3 years, you get what's called status. and then you're a status candidate. So if you see the jobs that say open to federal persons with status candidates, and federal former federal employees and status candidates, like if they put that announcement out, that's not open to anyone from the open to all U.S. citizens arena, right? That means you will have had to have worked with an agency, a competitive service agency, and I know this gets confusing. Accepted service agencies are like Peace Corps. Peace Corps, the agency, is an accepted service agency. What that really means is that they follow different rules than OPM for hiring and such. But it's not, it doesn't give you the status, whatever. And that's why Peace Corps employees get non-competitive eligibility, which is kind of the same. It's kind of like status, right? I mean, it allows them to be considered for opportunities that aren't open to all US citizens, and opportunities that may be open to only other federal government workers, right? In the competitive service and status candidates. So they get that special status of NCE for 3 years when you've worked with Peace Corps, the agency, for 3 years, because it's not really fair that you have to time out with your position. It's not a performance based. They have term limits, and so then they want to help you to get into another, where you would have that. So you would have to check. If you don't know, I would say do a Google search. Is USDA a competitive service agency or whatever, right? And you'll probably get it there, but you could always contact your former agency if you needed to as well. Most are competitive service. I mean, I don't want to say most. Yeah, most. I would say most, but I'm not saying like 95%. There's definitely other accepted service agencies, so it would depend on that. So that could factor in for you. Okay. Any other questions here in the last few minutes? You're welcome. Okay, just wondering. Okay, Niku, if you're an RPCV versus experienced, if I'm an RPCV but don't have much experience, should I still apply? I would say that that depends on what kind of job you're going for. You wouldn't want to apply for a high level job that maybe has you don't have any of the experience in, because you're not going to get into the if you don't meet the minimum qualifications. And sometimes even if you meet the minimum qualifications, but you don't have really good, like you're in the top 10 to 20%, because they're not looking at everyone. They're, usually they get a lot of applications, federal government does, in most agencies, or many agencies, I should say. And so they're looking at the top maybe 10 to 20%, right? But you don't want, so I would look at some of those things, but I would make sure that you at least meet the minimum qualifications, and maybe, can, be a little above that as well. Okay. Great. All right. Anything great, Taylor, thanks so much for the kind words. Thank you to everyone. I think what I will do here is why don't I go ahead and stop the recording? And then if people do have some additional questions that are off topic, I'm happy to help you. I really hope that this has been helpful for you on, thinking about online resources to help you in your job search. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us, and make it a great day.